One of the strangest realizations that comes later in a business journey is that making money and allocating money are two completely different skills. For a long time, they feel like the same thing. When you're building the system in the early stages, every dollar that comes in simply keeps the machine alive. Revenue arrives and immediately goes somewhere else: payroll, contractors, marketing, tools, reinvestment. The business is in motion all the time. But eventually, if the system survives long enough, the situation changes. The business starts producing cash that isn't urgently needed just to operate. And when that happens, a different responsibility quietly appears. You're no longer just generating income, you're allocating capital. The moment a business produces surplus cash, the founder's job begins shifting from earning money to directing it. That shift sounds obvious on paper, but in practice, it's where a surprising number of businesses start making expensive mistakes. Because generating revenue rewards one set of instincts. Allocating capital rewards almost the opposite ones. Earlier in the journey, speed matters. Movement matters. Opportunities are evaluated quickly because the system needs momentum to survive. That environment trains founders to think a certain way. If money appears, deploy it. Expand something. Create more activity. And those instincts are incredibly useful while the business is still fragile. But once capital enters the system, the rules quietly change. The instincts that help you earn money often work against you when you start allocating it. I remember noticing this tension the first time the business began holding meaningful surplus cash. It wasn't a massive amount, but it was enough that the system could operate comfortably without deploying every dollar immediately. At first, that felt unfamiliar. For years, the business had trained me to treat money like oxygen. Cash arrived and it needed to move quickly to keep the machine operating. Now there was something new: optionality. And optionality introduces decisions that don't have obvious answers. Should the capital be reinvested into the business? Should it be saved for future opportunities? Should it be deployed into external assets? Those questions don't usually appear during the early stages of building. Early-stage founders simply need the system to work. But once the machine becomes stable, capital decisions begin shaping the long-term direction of the business. And this is where many founders run into trouble. Most founders allocate capital the same way they learn to generate revenue: quickly and reactively. That pattern shows up in a lot of different forms. Sometimes it looks like aggressive hiring before the system truly needs it. Sometimes it looks like expanding into new projects that dilute focus. Sometimes it looks like chasing investment opportunities that sound exciting, but don't strengthen the core machine. None of these decisions feel reckless in the moment. They often feel like progress. But capital allocation isn't supposed to feel fast. It's supposed to feel deliberate. One of the most valuable things I learned by watching long-lasting businesses is how patient the founders often were with capital. They didn't treat surplus cash as something that needed immediate deployment. They treated it as something that gave the system options. Capital becomes powerful the moment you stop feeling pressure to use it immediately. That discipline is surprisingly difficult to develop, especially for founders who spent years building under scarcity. Scarcity trains you to move quickly. Capital asks you to slow down. I remember a period where the business had accumulated more liquidity than it ever had before. The instinct was to expand something right away. Marketing, hiring, new offers, any of those options would have created activity. But when I looked closely at the system, something became clear. The business didn't actually need expansion at that moment. What it needed was stability. That realization changed the way I evaluated capital decisions entirely. Instead of asking, "How can this money create growth?" the question became, "What will strengthen the system?" Sometimes the answer was infrastructure. Sometimes it was patience. And sometimes the best move was doing nothing at all until the right opportunity appeared. Good capital allocation doesn't maximize activity. It maximizes leverage. Leverage shows up when capital decisions reduce the amount of effort required to sustain the system. It might appear as technology that removes operational bottlenecks. It might appear as acquisitions that expand the ecosystem around the business. Or it might simply appear as liquidity that allows the founder to make decisions without pressure. The common theme is that the capital strengthens the architecture of the machine. And once you begin viewing money inside the business through that lens, the allocation decisions begin to feel very different. Suddenly, many attractive opportunities lose their appeal. They increase activity, but they don't increase leverage. Others become far more interesting because they improve the system's long-term durability. I remember noticing this shift during a stretch when several expansion opportunities appeared at the same time. Earlier in the journey, I would have accepted most of them immediately. But this time, the question was different. Would these opportunities make the system stronger? Or simply busier? That filter eliminated most of them. The strongest founders don't just earn capital, they learn to protect it until the right move appears. That patience is often invisible from the outside. When you watch businesses from a distance, it's easy to assume growth comes from constant action. But when you look closely at durable systems, you often see long periods where capital is being held carefully rather than deployed aggressively. Those periods create the foundation for the moments that matter most. Because when the right opportunity finally appears in acquisition, a strategic expansion, a structural shift in the market, the businesses that can move decisively are usually the ones that preserved their capital earlier. They prepared quietly. That's why capital allocation eventually becomes one of the most important skills a founder develops. Not because every decision is dramatic, but because those decisions determine what the system will look like years later. The business you operate tomorrow is often the result of the capital decisions you make today. And once you recognize that pattern, something interesting happens. Money inside the business stops feeling like fuel for constant motion. It starts feeling like something much more powerful, a resource that quietly determines how far the system can go.